log, stardate 7403.6.
You're pretending to do a captain's log?
I saw that, but I don't believe it.
A Vendorian doctor.
Shapeshifter? Look, I can set you up with somebody great on the Cerritos. There's that Philosian and Tactical. She seems like a nice plant person.
Intelligent plants?
Orion's little game of neutrality and piracy is over.
For your information, mini Orions haven't been pirates for over 5 years!
Time to take this puppy off its leash! Warp me!
Hello and welcome to Drawn to Trek. We are today poring over the Comic-Con panels from Comic-Con at Home. We this morning, got up. I had internet problems because, of course, I
did. we all do. You
Yes.
know, it happens to everybody. I swear this is just this one time. It's never happens again. Yeah.
It was like Geek Christmas, where you're just like, I didn't sleep. That's why I have like 4 hours. My brain is sort of like a fog. Get up. But I was so excited, and we got to see a trailer for Prodigy, which is fantastic, and we got another 2-minute trailer for Lower Decks with just a ton of stuff in it. So I am so excited to talk about that. And joining me today is Jessie Gender.
Hey. How you doing?
Hey. Good. Because we've been talking about before we started recording this, and we may have recorded a couple intros already.
Just a few.
Yeah.
It's not like I need to take 50 different intros before I finally get it right. That's fine.
5 take gender. No.
Yes, that's my gender. 5 takes. My gender is officially 5 take genders. There it is. Love it.
So yes, but yeah, no. So we are now. I'm
your face is all red. It's lovely.
Yeah,
it's lovely.
Totally flustered.
It's great.
So we are just gonna dive in. I think we're gonna start with Prodigy because normally Darren Moser would be joining us for Prodigy. He is in the middle of a project, and since we haven't really officially started Prodigy yet, he said feel free to jump in and just take a
You're stuck
pass
with
at
me.
it.
You're stuck with me with Prodigy. It's fine.
It's fine. I think I'm just excited for both of these things. Like, just watching Prodigy is just beautiful.
I mean, honestly, I was saying, I said this in our sort of premiere episode where it was introducing me, but also watching this, and I also said this on Twitter. I like Discovery, I like Picard. I'm very excited for Strange New Worlds, but I also feel like between Prodigy and Lower Decks, animated Star Trek is really giving me everything that I want from Star Trek. The other shows I love and I'm excited for. I love my live action Star Trek, but from what I personally like about Star Trek, both Prodigy and Lower Decks are doing the two things that I really want. So
it feels like there's a real sense of the utopian vision and that sort of just positive future. And not that the other ones aren't, but there's something with animation, especially if you're going to aim it towards children, at least with Prodigy and stuff, you're not going to be totally dystopian, even though that kind of is sort of the general teen novel direction of things right now. So
yeah and something that they leaned into in the panel, and they were talking about in the panel, which by the way, the panel had Jerry O'Connell from Lower Decks, he was hosting it, and then you had Kate Mulgrew and then most of the cast and the creators as well in there. They really kind of leaned into this idea that these are people who aren't Starfleet. They're civilians, sort of seeing a different side of things. And that's something that I've wanted in Star Trek for forever. And yes, this is most of them are kids. And not that that's a bad thing, or bad or good thing. I mean, I love kid shows like She-Ra, Kipo, and The Age of the Wonder Beast. Those shows are I love those shows so much. And this feels very much, this feels very much in line with that type of storyline where it's kids, it's made for kids and it's made for kids to enjoy them. But the stories are in depth, they're complex, adults can enjoy them. So there's that element of it too, but I'm just very excited about the fact that this is going to be a civilian look at the Star Trek universe. They're not part of the Federation. It looks like they're Delta Quadrant people, finding a Federation ship and going off into the Delta Quadrant and doing whatever. But it's I'm so excited to finally see a Star Trek show that's not Starfleet focused. I love Starfleet. Look at me, I'm wearing my Lower Decks uniform, but it's I just want to see that perspective on the Star Trek universe, like a different perspective that isn't like pseudo-military focused. Not that, again, the discussion of Starfleet as military is long and ongoing, but like...
We could have that as a separate podcast on its own.
Exactly. But it is like a very specific mindset and very regimented, and I kind of want to just see what the Star Trek universe is beyond that. And we don't really get that perspective often, and so Prodigy is showing me that, and I'm pumped for it.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what the kind of the natural shakeout of how these people work together, because will it kind of default back to Captain Janeway and being the captain, and then these people all have the role as an engineer or a science officer or whatever, or will it be a little bit more kind of natural and organic? And it'd be really interesting to see, like, they don't know anything about that sort of structure, and it also feels just by the trailer that they've also might have been pretty much kind of detained their entire life, maybe doing mining or something like that. It feels like they've at least been captured at some point. So
or like this is like the life that like you're always gonna live, like kind of like a not Hunger Games is probably not as dystopian as that, but more just like this is the society you live in. We're never gonna reach for more sort of thing, probably. And then they sort of have a chance to escape. Also, speaking to like something they mentioned during the panel, like they mentioned the what is it, Rock Talk, or the rock monster character who is like has the like very cutesy, like they have an actual kid playing the rock monster, which is wonderful. And she seems very, very well spoken for
Riley Al-Zaraki? Something like that. Yeah, I'm horrible with names.
But like hearing her, hearing that, like they mentioned like, oh, when they get on the ship, that's like very much like, oh, they think the rock monster is going to be their security officer, and then clearly like it's also like the rock monster is like the adorable, like I like animals, I'm really soft, I really like science. So it seemed like there might be setting up like, oh, they're going to try to build like a pseudo Starfleet. They find the ship, they find the Janeway hologram, and she's like, you need to be Starfleet crew members. There's these roles, and so they start to fit that, but then realize like, no, that doesn't exactly fit. So I'm assuming there'll be like a pseudo Starfleet-esque structure, but kind of they'll be breaking it down. It'll be like a commentary on Starfleet structure and being like, yeah, we want to be like Starfleet, but our own weird mismatched crew kind of way.
I love just the idea of Rock Talk, liking animals much. Just I could just see holding a kitten or something like that. Just this tiny little cat. And I think Kate Mulgrew pointed out, the kind of dissonance between the animatic and the voice and stuff. I really like that. And, like, she asked, I think, if was that a conscious decision? I'm like, well, yes, of course it was.
Well, see, this is the thing with Kate Mulgrew. Like, no matter what, even if it's like an obvious question, she makes it sound so deep just with her voice. You're like, oh yeah. That's a very yes.
I feel like she's a teacher that never like stops teaching. It's got that sort of feel to her. Like wherever you meet her, she's gonna like lecture you on not bad, but just it's like I'm gonna It's
like she could be asking like, what do you want for like dinner, or like someone's like, do you want to go out to McDonald's for dinner? It's like yes, it's you're so thoughtful about that. Like, oh, McDonald's, all the like just weird stuff. Yeah,
golden arches.
Yeah, exactly. What else did I want to say? Like the ship, by the way, looks, I know you had that image of it, but like the ship looks really, really cool that they find.
Yes, the USS Protostar, NX 76884, and the registry actually does have a hidden meaning. The producer, Aaron Waltke, was born August 8th, 1984, so that's the 884 part of the NX 76884.
Oh, that's smart. I like that. It's also NX class, which is interesting, not NCC.
Well, my guess... Oh, and you can see in this photo, I love that you can see the foot that's holding it up, and it's that same kind of metal foot that Voyager has when it lands. So that's cool.
It very much looks like a mix of Voyager meets the Enterprise E/F from Online. Like it feels like
a Nova class or something even.
Yeah.
No, it's funny because we were talking about this earlier. I was doing a ship design, and I'm practicing because I want to eventually one day do some ship design for Star Trek Online or something like that. And it is really similar because I took it and put it in the exact same time period this is. So I'm very happy that I actually I did pull the right pieces out, but now I think I have to redesign mine because it's a little too close.
Did they announce what this was going, where this was set? Is it 24th century or 25th century?
They had mentioned, and I don't know if it, because I know that sometimes they like to throw people off, but it was, I think, like 2 or 3 years before Lower Decks or after Lower Decks. But it's around that time period. Hey there, Aaron from the future. It takes place in 2383, which is about 3 years after the last episode of Season 1 of Star Trek Lower Decks. So I'm guessing that this is a prototype ship that somehow got to the Delta Quadrant very fast, or something like that, and maybe crashed, or maybe it was a transwarp ship, or I don't know.
Yeah, probably something like that. It's Quantum Slip's stream, because that was something they were screwing with at the end of Voyager there.
Yep. And yet it has regular warp drive, because in the end of the trailer you can see there in this massive bridge. I love the bridge. It's just
the bridge looked really
all
cool.
window. It's like
very much putting it like the Discovery inspired, I think. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. But even more so, it feels like it's just, I don't know, it's something, it wraps around. It's very cool looking. But their L cars had like the traditional warp field diagram on it, so I'm like, okay, so it does have warp drive. Yeah. Another thing is the person who was doing Rock Talk that we were talking about earlier, her father did Rocco from Rocco's Modern Life, so there's a little bit of like,
family
kind of
lineage,
family, yeah, exactly. And she's
that's probably why she got the job too, because she's like, father's like, yeah, you get in there, but it's, but yeah, no, she seems lovely, and it sounds like they all seem to. The other person I want to point to, all of the cast members look wonderful, but was it D. Bradley Baker, who is probably best known for Star Wars,
everything.
Everything. But I think especially right now, he does all the clone voices in the Star Wars animated shows, and specifically Bad Batch would be the one I would like point out. Like, he's done them for all of them, but Bad Batch specifically, he does like 7 or 8 different characters with all different voices, and he's just really good.
Which is, I did not even know that. Like, when I first started watching it, I was like, oh wait, that kind of sounds like the same person. And I looked it up. I'm like, wow, it's all the same people.
He does a great job. Like, he was in Clone Wars initially, but he was doing that. But he's also done a bunch of other stuff. But that's probably where I mainly know him from. But yeah, no, hearing him do the alien blob thing like that, it's like, wow, that was impressive.
Yeah. It just it's funny because I can tell how he's doing it, but there's no way I could make my mouth do it. So I think it's just really funny to watch that and just like, it sounds like these liquid noises that sound much better when he does them. So Jason Mancudas do as well from my favorite from The Good Place.
Oh yeah. No, Derek.
Yeah, Derek.
Yeah, he's wonderful, and I'm glad he'll finally be in Star Trek, because he's always lovely. I think he wasn't he also just in Invincible recently too?
I think so.
Yeah, he was a character that he's lovely, and also during the panel he was hysterical. Like, I should mention, like, if you're listening to this podcast and have not watched the panel, like the Lower Decks, like, both panels were fantastic, but specifically the panel itself, this is just like a fun little thing. Jerry O'Connell was hosting it, but it looked like at one point, apparently his wife, who is Rebecca Romaine, who plays number 1 on Strange New Worlds, she walked in and was apparently rehearsing with Ethan Peck, who plays Spock on that show. So they just like come in, and you see Jerry O'Connell get like all flustered. And he calls Janeway,
Vice Lieutenant,
and she gets all pissy about it. It was the most hilarious and adorable thing, because they were just all giving each other crap, and Ethan Peck and Rebecca Romaine are just like, what do we walk into right now?
I just love it. She's like, it's called Lower Decks.
Yeah.
Like, we're Prodigy. I think you can see what's happening here.
yeah, exactly.
It was so fun.
It was, they all seem to clearly have a good rapport together, and that's the stuff like that. I mean, we don't want to get too off track here, but like that's why I love Star Trek in general, but especially like this modern era of Star Trek, is they all just seem like really lovely people who like just enjoy ribbing each other and enjoy being in each other's company, and
I think I noticed that the Discovery crew was the first when I was like, oh, there is literally no sign of any of like, because if you read about Star Trek history. If you read the Star Trek history, it turns out some of them didn't get along with each other. It's shocking. But I
feel like next generation onwards, they all really seem to like coalesce into a family.
Yeah. And it seems like the family in TNG maybe didn't happen quite as fast as Discovery. Like Discovery seemed to like it out of the box. They were just like really good friends. I think some of it had to do with just their background and their training and just the way modern creative work is done compared to even what it was done in the 80s. I think there's more of a like, hey, people are human. We need to treat them as such.
Right. What a weird thought.
Crazy. So it was just fun to see them, and just now watching every other cast so far, everybody seems to just really, I'm sure not everybody gets along all the time, but I just love that there's this sense of camaraderie, and they like Star Trek. There's not this sort of like, I'm doing this for a job. This is like, no, I really enjoy this content.
Yeah. And that's just part of why I like this modern era. And I mean, like, I think you get that all the sense in like all the shows from Next Generation onwards, and even in the original series, I think there's like Leonard Nimoy seemed to be like a really wonderful human and care about like George Takei and others and all that stuff. But yeah, no, I think like Next Generation onwards, that sense of like family behind the scenes is like really a core part of it, and just seems lovely. And I like seeing that here. So that was just really nice to see on that, and it was just a good time. And Jason just started like giving all of them crap too. It's like, all right, he's like lowered. Yeah. It's like,
wasn't there something else about like, it's like I insisted that I be the only one live action and everything else is animated.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to Prodigy. Like this show, you know, it's still hard to like kind of get a gauge on it, but like judging by the showrunner's previous work on like Troll Hunters or whatever I think it was called, I've seen a few episodes of that, and then like comparing to like other modern kid shows today, like I mentioned, like She-Ra and Kipo, which I feel like. Honestly, to be fairly honest with you, those are some of my favorite shows because they really are able to kind of push the envelope in ways that I feel like adult shows aren't as much, like the live action shows, because they have to kind of be like more quote unquote mass audience, quote unquote, like more like less risky sort of thing. So I really feel like Prodigy like has the ability to tell us this like big expansive storylines and really say something meaningful and really different. Because it is speaking to kids rather than adults who and have less preconceived notions of what Star Trek has to be.
And I like that the Hegeman brothers mentioned that it is canon. I like that they subtly sort of worked it in there as somebody who has worked on the original animated. Wow, that's so weird. I worked on the book about the original animated series. I know enough that like that's always been just a contentious thing with fans. Like either is or it isn't. It's always been canon, but whatever. And just the fact that they're able to now say this with some sort of certainty and put it in there and it's also good to know that they're not then just going to veer off and do something that completely wrecks something else. So there's,
I mean, even if they did, that's like not outside the realm of Star Trek either. Like, Star Trek is like the warp. Like so many things are inconsistent throughout Star Trek. Like the Next Generation, there's the episode where like the guy travels back in time. It's like, I'm a historian from the future, and Picard's like, the Federation would never do that sort of thing. But in the original series, there's a whole episode where Kirk goes back in time to study the history. It's like, it's always wildly inconsistent. So, and
they did they did that in the animated series. So that's how the whole thing with Yesteryear happened, is that they were back studying Orion at the dawn of civilization, and it was just like, or Orion, if you want to pronounce it however they do later.
Yeah, it's actually it's all wibbly wobbly timey wimey. The way I just always explain it's like, oh, the Temporal Wars just happened and screwed things up. So yeah, there you go.
It makes sense. I mean, that's why maybe the ships in Enterprise look different than you might have expected if you were like doing that in the 70s or something.
And literally anyone says like, well, this canon contradicts this canon. It's like, well, Temporal Wars.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Temporal Wars changed stuff. I don't know what you're going to talk about.
It's always looked like that. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about. So I guess we should move on to Lower Decks.
Yeah, I think so. Trying to think. I think that pretty much wraps up Prodigy.
Unless you had anything else you wanted to say, I'm just looking forward. Oh, one other thing I do. Oh, sorry, yeah. No, we both seem to have something.
Yeah, I did notice a voice in the beginning of the trailer where he's saying it's like you will never get out of here or whatever. That sounded an awful lot like J.G. Hertzler.
No one shall escape.
And I don't know if it is, but it did sound like it.
Yeah, well, he was in Lower Deck, so...
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And we have a celebrity voice in the... or a familiar Star Trek voice in the Lower Decks trailer, too, so...
Yeah, well, J.G. Hertzler would I mean, he was in Lower Decks, and for those of you who don't know, he was a character in Lower Decks, but he's also most known for playing Martok over on Deep Space Nine. And also, did he play... I feel like he played something else at some point, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I know Martok is his big claim to fame within Star Trek, but I feel like he did one other thing, but I don't remember.
I do, too, and I don't remember off the top of my head, yeah. Aaron from the future again. J.G. Hertzler played not only Martok on Deep Space Nine and the Drukmani captain on Lower Decks, but on Deep Space Nine he played a Vulcan captain in Emissary, Roy Rittenhouse in Far Beyond the Stars, Laws in Chimera, and a holosuite guest in What You Leave Behind. In Voyager, he played a Herosian fighter, and in Enterprise, he played Kolos in Judgment and a Klingon captain in Borderland.
I'm sure it was like something random, but it might have even been another Klingon because sometimes they double up. But yeah, no, he was great. So yeah, that it might be the case. That might be the case. So that'd be kind of fun. Oh, my thing that I wanted to just mention, just speaking from an LGBTQ perspective, and like a trans perspective, they had the sort of character of Zero, I think was the name of the character, which would be interesting because they mentioned that that Zero is was a Medusan, I believe.
Medusan, yep, from the original series.
Yep, and also that they're genderless, which is cool. Like I like seeing genderless characters, and it makes sense. Like robots wouldn't necessarily have a thing of gender, especially if they're from an alien species and not a human species.
Glowing, like they're the energy being. So
yeah. I just my only concern always with that sort of thing is like it makes sense. I'm here for it, but it's like seeing non-binary only as alien metaphor again, which finally they started to get past in Discovery. And again, it's not that I'm upset about it or like I think it's a bad thing or that it doesn't make sense within the universe. Totally does. It's just sort of like we need more literal interpretations, not just alien interpretations of non-binary people.
Yeah, it's like the bisexuality in Loki. Like, it's there theoretically, but you just defaulted back to a male-female relationship. Like great. Yeah. So yeah.
Not to say that it erases someone's bisexuality if they're in a female relationship, but it's a complicated conversation. It's something that like Disney is able to be like, yeah, we did our bisexual representation without like actually having that where they could like technically say like, oh, but like hide it for like other audiences and things.
It feels like fence sitting or like just sort of like I get it, but at the same time it's like all right.
It's one of those like complicated intersecting conversations like bi erasure, biphobia, but also like representation and needing to be like clear about representation as well. So it's a complicated thing. And then within this, it's the same exact thing. It's like within this makes sense, totally fine. And like I'm not condemning the show or saying it's a bad thing. It's like it makes sense. The character makes sense. I'm sure I will love the character. It's just one of those things that just makes me think of like this is great. I just personally we need to see more non-binary literal representation, which Discovery is doing, which I'm appreciative of. So at least it's not a problem with the franchise overall.
Right.
So
yeah. Well, should we move on to Lower Decks?
Let's do it.
Lower decks.
All right. Yeah. I am so pumped for this show. I cannot tell you how excited this trailer made me.
You're wearing your Lower Decks uniform. I'm wearing my Lower Decks bounding, basically like Disney bounding, where people dress up kind of like Snow White or whatever when they go to Disneyland. I found this polo online, and it looks like a short sleeve, slightly altered version of a science uniform.
I love it.
I had to get this. So
it's so perfect. Yeah, I absolutely love it. Yeah, no, this show, like looking at this trailer, like there's so like we could talk probably for hours about this like 2-minute thing alone.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing to like, I think just to get it out of the way first is like they have Robert Duncan McNeil back as Tom Paris on a Tom Paris commemorative plate, which looks like such the best and weirdest way to bring Tom Paris back.
Well, we saw a commemorative plate at the end of season 1 in
exactly it was Boimler's room.
Yeah.
So I was like, it probably they had already started working on the script for season 2. That's my guess. They probably already started working on the script for season 2 while the animators are finishing up animation of season 1. So they're like, oh yeah, slip the plate. Because I remember watching that episode. I'm like, why the hell does Boimler have a plate in his like back? Yeah.
So if you're watching the video version, we've just popped up a picture of the Tom Paris plate.
And it's supposed to be referencing the Janeway, the commemorative plates they did in the 90s. And actually, I don't know if you saw, but Mike McMahon was tweeting about it afterwards on Twitter just a little bit ago, and he was saying like the reason they did this because he always found the commemorative plates like super weird, and was just like, we need to reference this. So and now they're actually selling it too.
Yeah, you can pre-order it or pre-alert yourself for it.
Alert yourself for the pre-order.
Yeah. So, there's 2 or 3 steps before you get the plate, but it's funny because I had friends who everybody who's like so into Star Trek that were just like, I can't really afford my rent, but I bought a plate that I'll never eat off of. I was always found that really weird, and they weren't exactly the most. I don't know, the pictures weren't great on them either. It wasn't like, I really want to put this on my wall. So yeah, it's pretty funny. I love that, and he's in the Jeffries tube, and It's like, thanks, Tom Paris. He goes, well, I'm a little concerned about the, the fumes in here, because you are talking to a plate.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my god, and it's just like the perfect Lower Decks weird way to like bring in these characters without it making it seem like, because the issue that they could get into is like, making these characters like too important and too much like, they run into these characters, like we've already run into Riker at the end of season 1, so it's like I don't necessarily, like, believe me, I love my references to different things, but it's like they run into Q, they run into Riker, and it's like they could end up being like, we're gonna run into all the greatest hits of these characters and kind of limit the universe. And so like having Tom Paris like show up as like weird hallucination commemorative plates at least like justifies like why we're seeing him without it being like, we're running into everybody, you know?
Right. Yeah, you don't want to make the universe feel like there's like 12 people in it. There was a Mystery Science Theater at one point. It had Mike Nelson playing Captain Janeway for like a short time. I think I showed that to you at one point. It's like, I'm responsible for the lives of 148 people on this ship, 144 of which we never see. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's what it felt like.
Yep, exactly. Oh my god, yeah. But like the humor, this humor in this trailer was so good. The best bit was like they're like, it's so wonderful, like awe-inspiring, and then the ship warps away. It's like, they left us. How much air do we have? A little ballpark.
Yeah. Just the whole idea. It's like, no matter what deck you're on, it's like we're all in this together. And then the ship takes off. Like, there you go.
Yeah.
It looked like they were on like some sort of maybe observation satellite or something like that. They're looking at some sort of stellar phenomena. So yeah, that's great.
My favorite one was just the skin one, where it's just like we can do it if we believe in our, like, not here but up here, and then Rutherford's like, our skin, and then he's like, no, our brains. Oh yeah, it's brains inside our skin. Yeah. It was just
which
so
is
good.
not even right either, which is weird.
Yeah, the delivery, like just Rutherford's like over enthusiasm for that was just so wonderful.
I can feel like the improv background in that sort of like just the way that felt was like I could totally see that happening on stage just randomly.
Yeah. Well, knowing that the way they record it, like Mike McMahon's talking about it, they do a lot of improv in the booth, so some of it might have been actual improvisation instead of actual lines. So
it could be, yeah. I would love to find out what kind
percentage?
of balance. Yeah, it would be interesting, because I know they've said that in some shows, and you find out it's like a line has been improvised, like on Voyager with the Doctor. Like it's like you're breathing on my neck. It's like well, my breath is holographic. Well, so is my neck. Stop it. Like that was improvised, but that had to be then written down and there was just like, so it was improvised, delayed, and then redone. So but I remember reading Star Trek, I have a Star Trek Voyager Celebration book in the other room that I was reading, and they were talking like Ethan Phillips said he never improvised because he tried to do it once, and they had to he tried to do it one time, and they had to like call the writer's office, get it approved, and get it like a whole thing when he just for like something he thought he would do on set, and he's like, after that I was like, never gonna do that again. So I feel like all the older treks are very much like, no, you do what the writers say. Yeah. And it's like, whereas this, it seems like a little bit more like, a little bit more free flowing. So yeah, at least on Lower Decks. I don't know about Discovery and Picard, but true. Yeah. It was 2 minutes of just hilarity, and I just love the fact that we got another original animated series reference. The Pandro was a planet where they had this character named Bem. He was from. Bem is a colony creature, which means that he can break apart into different pieces, and his head floats somehow, along with other things. It's like so if you're, and so we have a Pandorian. Pandronian, I guess it would be. Pandemonium. Yes, exactly. Well, it's funny because she's like, hello, Cerritos. She was doing like some sort of like welcome, almost like a speech, or
like, it was like it has very much like the like seminar energy, like coming to the
and everybody looked very thrilled except for Mariner, who was just like kind of crossing her arms and looking like annoyed.
Yeah, it feels very like that scene feels. Oh my god, that image right there! I remember that episode. It's so weird. But I feel like it's very much that like seminar energy. It's like, all right, everyone, it's time to attend the seminar. They're coming on the ship. You need to go. Everyone needs to attend. That sort of thing. Yeah. I'm really curious to see what that. It kind of, you can tell from the trailer. You kind of have 3 episode, I think, feels like pieces of them, because there's something where Tendi and Mariner are in a shuttlecraft where she goes ramming speed. You can see in the back there's sort of like a crate with some
broken shards of pottery or a tablet or something like that. And then later they are in a bar with a bunch of Nausicaans and that space pool table. And, you know, Mariner's giving this speech to the Nausicaans, like, Starfleet is always, you know, we always do this. And then she goes, Latinum, and throws, like, the Latin. Run, Tendi, run! So, and Tendi had those tablets at the same time. So I'm assuming that it's either one episode or we're going to bits and bits, but yeah, where it's like...
I think it's probably going to be like probably the first 2 or 3 episodes, and maybe like an image or 2 from other ones, but the first.
That makes sense.
And what I like about that though is like we're starting, like we see it with Rutherford and Boimler are hanging out together at the end with that skin bit, and then Tendi and Mariner hanging out. So it's like I'm liking that they're kind of breaking up the duos a little bit.
And we had literally had that conversation a couple days ago, so that's kind of funny.
Yeah. It was because like they very much like just did for season 1 was very much Boimler, Mariner and Boimler.
Ooh,
that's their ship name. Their ship name, but Boimler, Mariner, and then Tendi and Rutherford. So I'm liking that they're kind of breaking up the duos a little bit.
You're talking about like maybe the one image from something else. We also have Boimler as a Borg or Borgler.
Oh, Borgler. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's just like one where he's like the red eye and everything. So it could be a dream sequence. Who knows? But I thought that was kind of funny. And they're also fighting right after that is the crystalline entity. Mm-hmm. So I love like just the little bits and pieces. There was something from that first. I don't know if it was the trailer before the 15-second one. Like we've gotten bits and pieces of this all along the way. So it was one, or it was a screen. No, it must have been a screenshot or something like that, where it looked like they were in a museum. And,
yeah.
And it turns out that this actually is a museum because when we're looking at it, let me pull that up. If you're watching the video, there is a bunch of stuff in there that. We kind of recognize there is the Picard's painting from Point of View? No, that's not right.
No, Matter of Perspective. Right?
Matter of Perspective. Point of View, Matter of Perspective, whatever. Same thing.
Same difference.
No. where Data basically just gives him a lot of grief for the bad choices that he made. We've got some Klingon and Vulcan weaponry hanging up on the wall. There is a video game, which I don't think anybody's really pointed out before, is behind... Rutherford, yeah. It doesn't have any branding on it, but it's a console video game, which is interesting. And then kind of on the next scene, there's a trumpet, which we were talking about. Maybe that's sort of an allusion to Riker.
Yeah. Probably.
And then there's these red shoes underneath that kind of look like the one shoe that Boimler had on when he was trying to be all sexy in Cupid's Air and Arrow. So I don't know if that's like maybe these are shoes of whoever that person was that the computer like oh, this person's, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but it's kind of funny that like there's just so much detail put into these, but the detail when you look at them, they're drawn very simply. Everything is like, but there's a lot of detail at the same time. It's a very weird.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really good. The animation they do a really good job with the animation style there. What was the other? The one that was interesting to me was the Free Cloud. Speaking of devil, did you pull it right up?
Yeah, that's.
What I liked about this though is it's like it means that they're referencing stuff that they've established within modern Trek, and it's not just all going to be like Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager stuff.
So if you watch Picard and you have never seen any of the past Star Trek, and then you watch Lower Decks, okay, you're going to see something that you know.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's really cool. And I mean, we saw some of that in Discovery, which spoilers for some of Discovery and Picard, not a major one, but we saw the Quat Malat from Picard show up in Discovery. And so I like that it's not just all like past Star Trek stuff.
Yeah.
It's like they are starting to have conversations between the writers' rooms of each of these shows and like actually dressing each other and intermingling, which I think is really cool. It's
not just nostalgia. It's I think they're proving that they can do that.
Build a universe.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know that was sort of, the people online. Everybody has all sorts of opinions, but the opinion of like, oh, this is fun, but only if you know these things. Like if you if you aren't immersed in the world of Star Trek like some of us are, it's not going to be funny to you. But now they're establishing things beyond that, and I think it is funny just in general, just the things that they get in the pace of the show and what they do and like their situations are funny. But,
and I've also come around on that, like, because that was something that I was saying even in my reviews of very much like, oh, this, like, I feel like a lot of these jokes are like just for us and like not for people who are just like maybe jumping into Star Trek. And I actually have come around on that. I think that it is like, it's nice to hear references to like the Crusher having sex with a candle in Veritas, like episodes last season. But like,
or 50-foot Spock.
exactly, which was one of my personal favorites because that means that there literally is a 50-foot Spock in canon somewhere. But also, I showed Lower Decks to a friend of mine who, like, she had seen Discovery and some of the Kelvin movies, but she hadn't really watched anything else. And she, watching Lower Decks, like, she liked Discovery, she liked the Kelvin movies, she was enjoying watching all of that. But, like, Lower Decks was the one, like, hearing all those references, and, like, when we got done watching it, I would be like, and that was referencing this, and this, and that, and that, and that. And that excitement kind of got her excited to now to the point where she's watching Deep Space Nine.
Oh, nice.
And so, like, I feel like I've kind of come about on that where it's like, yes, I feel like it is very insular, but I feel like it gets people curious about what those references are. I feel it could be a turnoff to some people, but I feel like for some, it's a way to be like, oh, this is cool. I want to know more about this.
It's almost like when you watch a spin-off of another show and you never saw the original, and then you go back and watch that and you're like, oh, that was what and whatever you saw before now just has that much extra layer of meaning to it. So
yeah, exactly. And I feel like the characters and the situations of Lower Decks are strong enough on their own.
Yeah.
Like if you took out all the references, it still would have a good bones of a good story. So I feel like that, like, the show is strong. Like, it's one of those, like, it has to be a show that's strong enough that stands on its own without the Easter eggs, and the Easter eggs become, like, a nice additional thing. And I think the show proves that. At least the first season did, so.
Yeah. There was also, at one point, this monster kind of burst through the not their bar, but their eating
10-4.
cafe. Yeah. Does it have a name?
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I think it might have referenced it in one episode, but it's like the 10-4 basically.
Yeah.
So.
And I believe that it must be Tendi, like it mutated into something, because it's like this giant green scorpion, basically. But the hairstyle is like it has hair and it's got like multiple eyes, but then Tendi's little swoop. So I love that. And
yeah, that's clearly a mutated Tendi there.
Yeah. And in that same thing, there's a person with my friends has a hot dog and fries, and the fry container has a Starfleet logo on it.
Lovely, lovely. I wonder if Discovery did that, because Discovery had the burger scene with. Did that? I have.
Well,
to
they had
go back
a
and rewatch
popcorn.
that.
They had the popcorn bucket that had the logo.
Oh
on
yeah,
it.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember if because they had tacos that were sitting inside of like. Wasn't it like a hat, and then it was like inside of just like little stands or whatever? I don't know if it had anything. And then I did this as a joke, so I did the French fries with the if you overlap the deltas, you get sort of the McDonald's M.
Golden orange.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's because I tweeted. I said, it's like, oh, I love Starfleet branding, and John Van Sitters, who does all of the marketing, who's now like vice president of Star Trek, he responded, "So do I."
Yep. What else? We didn't even mention the was it Tamaranian?
Yeah, the Tamarian or
Tamarian.
Yeah.
I forget what we said. Yeah. Tamarian, potato. It's fun.
There needs to be a Star Trek version of that song. We said that at one point with like
you
Tamarian,
say Tamarian, I say Tamarian, you say Orion, I say Orion.
Yeah. I think we might have to do that.
yeah, it'd be good. But yeah, no. So apparently, spoilers for Lower Deck season 1. But at the season finale of season 1, the Bajoran security officer dies, and so clearly we need a new security officer. And they announced that the Tamaranian is going to be the new security officer, which is awesome. That's such an awesome choice.
I love the idea of a security officer you can't really understand.
Yep. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, the Tamaranians are the alien species from the episode Darmok, way back in Next Generation, which is Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra. They
speak in metaphor.
Exactly.
But if you don't, it's actually a really interesting reflection on Lower Decks from the conversation we just had, because you and I can speak in Lower Deck Easter eggs, but other people might not be able to. I kind of feel like the Tamarians are that sort of, like, they're us with other people be like, what are you talking about?
That is so true. Yeah. It's like Riker and Picard at Nepenthe,
And if we said that, people who know that fills in that whole, that basically is that.
Yeah.
We jokingly said when we first saw the Darmok episode it's like people who speak Simpson, in Simpson metaphor, like they'll say, like D Bart D or something like that, and everybody knows what that, But yeah, that was what he comes on the bridge, and they what was
I forget his name, but blah 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 with the Seven United or something like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh shoot, I wrote it down. Oh well. Yeah. So it was.
How dare you be unprepared?
I wrote my own notes, and my notes are like apparently not in any kind of chronological order whatsoever. That's great. Anyway, yes. So he. is it something is like when he joined the Seven.
Lieutenant Kayshawn, welcome to the Cerritos.
Rapungi, when he joined the Seven.
And there's just this crickets and just staring at him like, what? So,
yeah.
I noticed that the counselor was on the bridge at the same time.
Oh, really? I didn't. Oh, yeah. Oh, and sitting in the third chair like Troy did in Next
like Troy,
Generation.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah, which played by why am I blanking on his name? Who also hosted the Trek Collective with Tawny Newsome.
Yes. Wow. What is
the Pod Directive, I should say. Paul F. Tompkins. There we go.
Thank you.
But he and Tawny Newsome. Paul F. Tompkins and Tawny Newsome host the Pod Directive, the official Star Trek podcast, and they are lovely on that. If you haven't listened to that, I would highly recommend it. Except for not as good as our wonderful dynamic. But,
no, of course.
Exactly. But that podcast is great, and he was also the counselor in the first season of Lower Decks. So I just think that's it's just cool to see him there, and like the reference to number one, having Paul F. Tompkins be in the show more regularly, but also like the reference to like he's sitting where Troy sat, and it's like always weird to me that like, I mean, I appreciate it, like counselors should be more normalized and stuff, but it's just always like interesting that the counselors got the third chair on the bridge as opposed to like some other position.
I think it'd be interesting to have the Doctor, trying to process her grief over, the loss of. Wow.
The Bajoran first officer. Wow, way to be a jerk. Yeah.
We both don't remember. Sorry. Shax.
Shax, yeah.
Yes, how could I forget that? I would love to see him or her talk to the counselor. And so you have a cat and a bird, basically.
Oh, my God. That's hilarious.
What
oh,
that
my
would
God.
be
I really
like.
hope I hope that happens. That sounds wonderful.
I just get, the feathers fly, basically, or whatever. It's like, stop talking in food metaphors. That's my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the counselor, if you haven't seen the season one, they have a ship's counselor who is sort of a bird creature, or a bird life form, and he speaks in food metaphors. Like, well, that's quite a pickle you got yourself in. It's like, what kind of, have you ever made a paella? Yeah, exactly.
Just making me hungry this whole time.
So yeah, I'm just excited for all of this.
Yep. And the other thing during the panel too, I should mention, like we were talking about the trailer mostly, but the panel they like talked about like Jeffrey Combs was also in there.
Yes, the evil computer.
And then we also Mike McMahon did say that there was going to be even other like appearances by people throughout the Trek franchise beyond Jeffrey Combs and Robert Duncan McNeil. He didn't allude to who, but he did say there would be more, which is kind of fun. And
I'm not sure if this made her like get taken off, but I think at one point they mentioned the actress who played. She was the science. She's the engineer that got the coffee dumped on her from Picard in TNG. Sonia Gomez. Yeah. So that actress was going to come back and do the same character.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm hoping that still happens, and because she wasn't supposed to announce that apparently, and I guess did. So
no, she I'm sure they're not that cruel about it, but yeah, I think that's awesome because Sonia Gomez is wonderful. She was a character that they intended to bring back more, but I forget what reason they didn't bring her back.
I thought she was. Every time I talk with an Alexa or a computer or something like. That's funny. I did not mute it. It will. I always think of that line. It's like, why not just be nice to technology?
Hot chocolate, please.
We don't ordinarily say please to food dispensers around here.
Well, since it's listed as intelligent circuitry, why not? After all, working with so much artificial intelligence can be dehumanizing, right? So why not combat that tendency with a little simple courtesy? Thank you.
So every time I talk to an artificial device, I think of Sonia Gomez.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Like, I also their banter on the panel was funny.
Yeah.
With, like Jack Quaid being like, I'm gonna be playing Superman, and Jerry O'Connell also played Superman, and then Mike McMahon had that joke where it's like, I also play Superman with my wife in bed or whatever. It's like, oh God, it's just very funny. La. Yeah, very fun.
Yeah. I don't think there's much left. I mean, it's funny that the amount of show that we saw was 30 minutes altogether or something for the entire, but it always feels like there's so much more to talk about.
Oh, I'm sure there's a bunch more I could like. I'm just like scrolling through here. There's like a bunch more you could talk about. Like the Pack-Leads are coming back. The Titans coming back. We got the weird fighty thing going on here. There's a whole bunch I could. Just
the Pack-Leads are going to be their main adversary, it looks like, in Lower Decks. Like, we had Borg for TNG. It feels right that the Pac-Leds are Lower Decks.
Yeah, that feels like a recurring villain for them.
And they were holding, for, like, Easter egg type thing, they were holding Klingon disruptors. So, obviously, they're continuing we just borrow technology. I just love that getting shot. Like, Boimler's beaming out and gets... And as he's it like causes like the beam to glitch, so he's just screaming like.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I'm just the humor's gonna be wonderful. This show is really wonderful. I really think Lower Decks is something special. I'm just so pumped for season 2, which is coming just a little bit. So.
And Rutherford was making a Cerritos model, which kind of reminded me of the captain.
Oh yeah, not even both the captain doing the models, but they had it with like the little like things that you break off, which is actually the actual models that you can buy today. So it's like that you're doing what we actually do. So that's kind of fun.
And I think behind Jack in his office is like a giant version of that on the wall, not the Cerritos, but just model pieces on those pieces of plastic on the wall.
Yeah,
kind of a cool decor.
Yeah. So. Well, I don't have anything else to say. I think I'm just ready for it to be here.
Me too. Yeah. So it'll be August 12th. Is that right? Which is the Thursday. So in theory, we'll be able to actually record our reaction to that. So you will have it on the 13th. So I'm looking forward to that. And for that, we're actually going to have everybody. It's going to be you, me, Darren Moser, and John Cooley. So we'll have the whole crew, and then then you and I will be on our own for like 9 more episodes, 10 altogether, I think. Yeah. Well, all right. Well, thank you so much. And we will see you in a couple weeks. And
don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or wherever your best podcast is. But also, please give us a rating that helps us get seen and everything like that. And if you do leave a review or something, we may read your review on the podcast.
Yes,
I think that might be a good idea. So.
And coming up in the future, those reviews actually might help with another thing that we're doing. So little vague posting, or vague. But not posting, really, but...
I hear you saying.
It's time for me to take a nap after all of the panels.
Me too. So, all right, everybody. Love you, everyone. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
Don't you give me that sarcastic Vulcan salute!